wanted to get into this because it's a potential that could happen with Ohio State, Penn State. College football playoff had a little meeting, a webinar where they trying to educate us, trying to educate the media. Good luck, Rich Clark, new executive director. Not only are we hard to educate, but we'll get it wrong anyway. And even if you educate every beat writer in the country, someone will say something on TV that's wildly wrong. That has a much bigger microphone. I always find that funny.
Dan, it's almost like you know how the media sausage is made. It's interesting.
Yeah. Both teams have the color blue. They can't play in the quarterfinals. I read that. Anyway, most of the stuff we kind of knew. There were just two things that he reiterated that I thought were pretty interesting. One is rematches are going to happen. I don't have this is something that gets college football fans very upset, or I don't know about upset, but they get kind of fired up. I'd rather there weren't. Rather see more new teams play each other, but this is just how it's going to be with the two massive conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC. And then the other is he said, and this has been something we've been talking about. What happens do you want to go to your conference championship game and then lose? Or would you rather just not make it and come in third? And we have seen through the years teams get in because somebody lost a conference championship game. Ohio State did it to Penn State one year. Penn State actually, we saw it with USC losing a couple years ago. Ohio State got in different times. Clark's line, I don't think a team would be unduly penalized if they lost in a conference championship game. As an now educated person, let me tell you that I don't think is not yeah. Anyway, what'd you think there, Ross?
We talked about it back in April. You know, the CFP met. I think I was there in Dallas, and we did our show from there. And one of the things discussed from there with the commissioners, you know, who control all this, was rematches, and they decided in a 12-team playoff not to implement any kind of policy to avoid rematches. If you go back, Dan, to the last 10 years and you applied the 12-team playoff and you also considered the realignment moves, there would have been 7 first-round conference versus conference rematches. So you all but 3 years, you got at least one. Now, again, a little odd doing that while considering the conference realignment, you know, but there's no doubt that we'll have some rematches, and there's a good chance that in the first round we'll have one every other year or so, or maybe more. I kind of think that the NCAA tournament has a policy, obviously, that kind of has a protocol where they avoid the first 2 rounds, right? Rematches in the first 2 rounds, I believe, and it are conference versus conference games in the first couple rounds. And I thought the CFP would do that, but there's fear. And I remember talking to Bill Hancock, former director, about this. There was real fear that you'd be contorting the bracket and the seeding to avoid potential rematches in the first round that would unduly penalize other teams. And so while I understand that, it would be great if we avoided, and maybe there doesn't have to be a protocol, right, or a policy. Maybe the committee members would just kind of do it and avoid the first round conference games.
Yeah, instead of a protocol, maybe a preference that's not written in. I'm with Dan on this, that I like it. Do not break the bracket to avoid a rematch. It would be nice if you can, but the basketball, it's easier to do because it's a bigger bracket. You got more wiggle room, more places to move people around. This is a 12-team deal. And I saw somebody said, when this first came up the other day, just, can you just change a 5 to a 6, or, to avoid a 5-12, 6-11? No, because a 5 seed is a really significant seed in this bracket. it's an advantageous seed. And if somebody deserves the 5 seed, you give it to them, as opposed to, well, we don't want them to have a rematch with somebody. I just think the bracket it's too small, and there's too many barriers to fudging things around just to avoid 2 teams playing each other that happen to play in October.
Yeah, I'm with the committee here, and Hancock was right, and this move is right. It just, first off, Pat's correct. The 5 seed is going to be unbelievable. You get the 5 seed, you're generally the next best team that didn't win the SEC or Big Ten. That, by definition, you are the top team that didn't win. So you're probably a 1-loss team that only lost to the champion of the SEC or the Big Ten. And you would normally be ranked like 3rd in the country. And your reward for that, which we should be rewarding, because we want the regular season to matter, which is why I want more home field. I'm not even getting in the clunky way that they're trying to figure out these neutral sites. Is that'll just make your head spin. We can deal with that later. But you get to play the 12 seed as a 5, which many years we believe will be the group of 5 champion, and at home. And that is a good reward, rather than as the 6 seed, you're playing number 11, which is going to be a power conference team most years. And potentially, like, look, Ohio State loses on Saturday by 1 point at Penn State. They could end up being an 11 seed. Would you rather play them as the 6, or would you rather play Boise State as the 5, right? No offense to Boise State. I actually think Boise State is going to be a stronger not group of 5 team than most years. I think this is a really good group of 5 team. But anyway, you win that, you then get to play as the 5 seed on a neutral site, the worst conference champion of the Power 4, whether that is, generally speaking, a Big 12 team, an ACC team, or like some upset team somehow. And that could be particularly true in one of these leagues where maybe, somebody sneaks into the championship game with their conference championship game with 2 or 3 2 and back. So you've got a very nice path to the semifinal. And so, but I think it's the perception that you're doing anything but following protocol is what they want to avoid, because all of a sudden everyone's going to start screaming, well, if you're doing that, you're favoring this team, you're favoring this league, and this committee is going to be under enormous issues trying to deal with it. And we're going to have our first rankings on Tuesday night are going to come out.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the ranking show.
Already?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And I've said
on
from the start,
night.
We've said it all the time. This is it. On election night,
Great.
we'll have some
Perfect.
real controversy here. This is important stuff, Pat.
Yeah.
We're going to have some real controversies. The fake ballots of a top 25. It doesn't matter. I'm more interested. But anyway, you get into this situation where you're going to undermine the credibility. They needed to get rid of the show. I know they're not going to do it because they got to prop up Maction or like some college basketball game in the middle of November. But your committee loses credibility every single week when they rank these teams and then have to explain it. And they get into they don't follow the same plan each week, and they come up with metrics, and the poor man or woman who's got to be the chair and get grilled every week on why someone's ranked 19th and not 24th, and game control and road turnover ratios, and these things come up. It's really important that this committee has credibility, and they will start undermining it on Tuesday. And so they need to have the best they can be to look like, hey, we just laid out our 12. If there's rematches, there's rematches. Look, did anyone hate Oregon and Washington playing a rematch last year in the Pac-12 championship game? Would anyone hate if Penn State fans might hate it, but would anyone else hate it if Ohio State and Oregon played again in the Big Ten championship? Like, rematches have happened. They happen. Alabama and Georgia in the SEC title game. Things have happened in the past. You deal with it. I think you got to stick to the protocol.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. The committee will begin absolutely just taking bullets voluntarily with this dumb plan for a dumb TV show while laboring under the weight of Greg Sankey having said things need to go extremely well or incredibly well, i.e., we're watching and we're ready to just take over this thing whenever we bloody well feel like it. So I have always wondered why people actually volunteer to do this committee. Actually, they don't volunteer, they get paid. But and even more now, it's going to be, I think.
How much you get paid to be on the committee?
They don't say. They never say. It's a stipend or something like that, they call it. But
wait, I might now be interested.
You would be the worst committee member of all time.
They would never let me
No.
on. I'd be great.
No, you'd be terrible.
I'd be great at this.
You would be terrible.
I'd skip 3 of them.
Yes. You'd skip 3
I'd be
of them.
like, you guys work that out. I'll be at the hotel bar.
Yeah, you'd lose interest halfway through on a couple others. No. But anyway, I mean, Godspeed to these people doing this committee. Ward Manuel is the chair this year, so he's the guy that has to sit on front of the ESPN cameras and answer all the questions and defend, people just throwing stuff at a wall for several weeks.